that they want to buy these sheep, and they like the smaller lambs. Their preferred size lamb is a 60-pound lamb, and they pay good money for those, and they want them. A lot of them, they want them unblemished, which is news to me, because that means I don't have to go and castrate them and have to put a bunch of ear notches and give them shots and all that. They want them unblemished. They don't want any. So to sell a sheep, in the United States, the sell barn, you have to have what's called scrapie tag, and that's just a tag to identify where these lambs came from, and they will not let you run them through a sell barn without them. And these ethnic buyers, they get mad because you put this metal scrapie tag in their ear, and it kind of creates a little conflict, because we have to do it if we want to sell them, but it creates some tension there. So anyway, and then I talked about that seasonal price pattern. So they usually show strength in the winter and spring, and then they decline in the summer. And one of the things that happened when the COVID hit in March of 2020, the sheep market was doing very good, and it dropped for about 2 weeks when all of the lockdowns and all of that hit, and then the market went right back up. Well, we got into the summer of 2020, and the lamb market, it didn't have its seasonal drop like it usually does. It stayed strong. And one of the reasonings I heard behind that was that there's a lot of foreign exchange students come over here to go to grad school. And what happened when all these countries started locking down, they were afraid to go back home. Where normally in the summertime, they all go home, and then they come back in the fall for the fall semester. But they said that a lot of them never went home because they didn't know if they were going to get back, and a lot of them may have had even trouble getting back home. So they continued to buy lamb, and that kept the market strong. And it's become such a big market that there's a sale barn in San Angelo. It's called Producers Livestock Auction. It's the largest sheep and goat sale in the United States. And anyway, they're to the point now where 90% of all the lambs they run through there now are hair sheep. So that's how much it's dominated that market, and the wool has really taken a back seat. And then there's some other specialty marking opportunities that I'm going to talk about a little bit more. One of the ones that I do is called GAP certified lambs. So y'all can, I didn't have a slide, I should have put it up, but it's called Global Animal Partnership. And what it is, it's a animal welfare system designed by Whole Foods Market. And basically the foundations of it are what we talk about in here. They want antibiotic free. They want the sheep to be. They really don't want you buying breeding stock at a sale barn. They want you to be raising your own, or be buying it off of other people's farms. They don't want you to handle the sheep with the hot shot, and they need to be grass fed, not grain fed. And it's a process. It's kind of like organic farming. I mean, you have an inspector that comes to your place and checks out your operation. But what I do, so I'm actually doing it a little different. I'm not sending my lambs to this ethnic market. What I'm doing is I'm doing this GAP certified, and I'm taking these hair sheep and I'm raising them to 60 pounds, and then I wean them and I run them on pasture for about another 3 months, and that's getting me to a 120-pound lamb, and that's what I'm taking to a slaughterhouse in Central Texas, and then they end up in Whole Foods Market. So that's kind of my way of direct marketing without direct marketing. So I'm going to go over a few of these breeds. So the Dorper sheep, they can be black-headed or they can be white. And triplets is not uncommon. Quadruplets is not uncommon. The problem you usually have, though, when you have 3, is usually one lamb gets kind of shunned off. So sometimes he dies, sometimes he's able to steal enough milk off of other mamas. But I try to just, on my place, I try to just let them be, and what happens, happens. And we do have mortality when we land. It's just a given. But the good things about Dorpers is these top two. They're heavy muscled and they're fast growing. So you can take a lamb, from the day this lamb is born, in 3 months he'll weigh 60 pounds. And he's ready to wean. And then like I said, on my place, I run them about 3 more months, and they're weighing 120 pounds. They're ready for market. So how many animals can you have basically from the day they're born to 6 months later, they're ready for market? You know, that's a big benefit of these. You know, these Dorpers are not perfect. They can have foot problems. They get foot rot, or they just get to where they want to limp around and struggle with their walking. And the Dorper breed of the hair sheep breeds is not the most parasite resistant. So the Katahdin is another very popular hair sheep breed. It seems like the Katahdins are more popular in the northern United States, and the Dorpers are more popular in the southern. But the Katahdin is a very good animal too. They're not quite as muscular as the Dorper. They have very good parasite tolerance. They're good mothers, and they do have good meat characteristics. And there's one called the St. Croix. It probably has the best parasite resistance, and they have good foot health and very mobile. But they're very thin boned, and they're not very muscular. And they cross real well with Dorpers, and I'm going to talk about that. And then one more. Then they have a Barbados sheep. These sheep have been around forever. They're very, very parasite tolerant. They're very prolific, but they're very wild, and they're thin boned and not very good meat characteristics. So, but what I found on my place is that I like to have my ewes to have a mix of several of those breeds. I don't have any what I would call 100% Dorper ewes. But what I do is I buy a very good 100% Dorper rams, and I breed them to that. So I get some of the characteristics that some of these other breeds bring, but my lambs are usually about 75 to 80% Dorper, so I get that muscling and that fast growth out of them. So, but some considerations you need to have before you start an operation, and this first one is very, very important. I cannot emphasize that enough. You need to have a predator control plan before you ever buy your first animal. If you do that the opposite direction, I promise you, you will not have all of your animals that you bought in a short period of time. Okay, so
You got 10 minutes.
okay. On the fencing, I prefer like a woven wire permanent fence. High tensile is what I use where I'm building these. And I do run my sheep on a double hot wire a lot. I make both wires be hot. And like I said, if you have something to eat in there, they don't want to get out. Pins are very simple. Just throw up some panels from the hardware store as T-post. Water troughs, I just use small little 50-gallon water troughs, and I'm usually feeding them out of a 1,000-gallon nurse trailer that I fill up at an irrigation well, or sometimes I use those old 250-gallon chemical totes, and I set one on top of the other and fill it up with water and let it gravity feed into their small waters. I feed loose mineral. You want to make sure it's for sheep with no copper. And then, marketing considerations is where is the closest market for your lambs. So, all right. When I lamb, what I try to do is I want to have my bucks out there every 8 months. So what I found that I do is it takes 5 months for gestation. And then it takes 3 months to raise that lamb to weaning, and then mama's llama's ready to breed again. So what I've done is I also, where we're cold, I don't want to have a lamb in January or February. So the way I do it is I put my rams out. So I'm gonna just take one set of ewes. I'll put my rams out on October 1st, and I'll leave the rams out there for 60 days. So I'll start having lambs in March, and then April, and then then on June 1st, I start weaning the lambs, and I put the rams back on there for June and July. And then they will have lambs, in the fall. And then I put the rams back in February 1st. So that avoids, basically I don't want to have the rams out on August or September, because that gives me a January or February baby. And I'm able to do that, and when I do that, I can get 3 pregnancies in 2 years. So, and then my goal I do just pasture lambing, and you can increase these if you want to be more proactive. But on pasture lambing, my goal is 120% lamb crop, and I feel like I can attain that. I would say you could probably get that number up to 180%, maybe even 200%. But what you would have to do is when that mama has her baby, you need to put her in a small pen called a jug. You need to leave her in there for a few days so she will claim that baby, and they bond, and then you can turn them back out. Now, I do not have facilities for that, and I do not have the labor for that, so we're just lambing on pasture. So anyway, but when I am lambing, you need to make sure you check them twice a day, because sometimes the baby will have its legs back, and the mama can't push them out, and we have to assist in that lambing. And if you don't catch that, the mama will end up dying. So, probably the most important part of this slide is all my lambs, when I wean them, I give them a shot. It's called CDT, which is called an overeating shot. It's very economical shot, but it helps prevent a bacteria in the sheep when they eat too much. And anyway, and I give my lambs this pneumonia vaccine. I do that, and that is the only time I ever give them a shot. Even if I keep my ewe lambs to breed and all that, they never get another shot for the rest of their life unless it's an individual circumstance. On parasites, what I do on my place, I select for, if you can tell when parasites are starting to affect some of the moms, when they get poor. And what I try to do is I will pull them individually, I drench them, I wait till my withdrawal's gone, and then I sell them, because I don't want them on my place. I'm selecting for that parasite resistance. And any lambs, if I ever buy, the only breeding stock I ever buy is ram lambs. And what I will do when I get them, I do give them a shot, and I do drench them when I get them from another place. And I quarantine them for 2 weeks before I put them out with the rest of the flock. That is the only outside animals that come onto my place. So, productive life of a ewe is usually 4 to 7 years. I know I try to cull if I know they're getting old, and if they miss a pregnancy, I try to be pretty proactive and get them off the place. Okay, these are some of the, a sale barn is the easiest place to market a lamb, but there are independent buyers that will come and buy lambs straight off your place. There's Facebook and Craigslist can link you to buyers. I know some people in the Amarillo area that they have some of these ethnic buyers, and they want to come and they want to butcher the lamb on their farm. And he's allowed them to do that. And it started out with one lamb, and now this has turned into, he wants to bring his friends and his cousins, and it's turned into a really good market for him. So there's a lot of opportunities like that. On that predator control, the easiest option is to pen the sheep at night. You need to have a good set of pins that a coyote can't get through, but that's the easiest way, but it's also the most labor-intensive way. The other options is to have a good permanent fence. You will never keep a coyote completely out, but a good woven wire fence will sure slow them down. And you can have guard dogs, llamas, and donkeys. I use the guard dogs. They're the best, in my opinion, the most consistent option for predator control. The nice thing about guard dogs is you don't have to train them. You know, I've seen some of these border collies that are so awesome at gathering cattle and sheep and all that, and I bought a border collie thinking that this was going to be easy, and she turned into a spoiled house dog. Well, these guard dogs, you don't have to train them. All you do is they live with the sheep, and that's where they want to be. And have a natural tendency to, you know, fend off coyotes and fox and all these predators. And the only drawback really to a dog is you have to, you know, keep dog food out for them. So anyway, and the only another bad thing about you, I want to keep my guard dogs gentle too, because sometimes when I'm moving the sheep and going from pasture to pasture, I want to be able to handle that dog. And if those dogs are wild, that gets to be very fun and interesting. So these are some of the breeds of dogs. The Great Pyrenees is probably the most popular breed that people use in the United States, and I would argue that it's probably the worst breed to be using. And I'll tell you why. A Pyrenees dog, they guard by roaming the perimeter of the pasture. So they have that tendency to roam, and when I told y'all I have my sheep on a hot wire, and I worry about the dogs just roaming and trying to get out, and that can be a real issue. And the Pyrenees has been crossed and bred. It's not. They can be good dogs, but I think there's better options. The breed that I use is called a verma. They are originally from Italy, and the way they guard is they want to be with the sheep. So on those 95-degree days when all those sheep are laying under the shed, and I'll go check the sheep, and I'll be like, "Where's my dog?" And I'll look up, and then all of a sudden this little head will pop up out from the dog will be right in the middle of the sheep. I think they are sheep, but they're really good at they take ownership of those sheep, and they just really bond to them. The aquash is another breed. That's a very good breed too. If I didn't have verimas, I would have aquash. They're originally from Turkey, and they're very good at keeping even the smallest predators like birds and small predators away. And then Anatolian's another popular breed. They're a big old dog, and I just say they guard by intimidation. So these are some pictures here. It's like 7 below zero. This was in February. I know a lot of y'all heard about our Texas storm that caused all these problems. It was 7 below zero this morning, and those dogs are just happy as can be, you know, guarding these lambs. And they take ownership of those sheep. And so I don't know if y'all can see here, but here's a mama, and she's got her baby right there, and there's the 2 dogs. They're watching over her, and they're gonna keep a close eye on her, especially for that first day or two, because that's their baby. You know, we think we own those lambs, but really that's theirs. So anyway, there's my border collie. Just another example of this is kind of how I set up for my dog. There's my dog feeder. There's how I feed my mineral, and there's a water trough right over here. So one of the bad things about sheep, though, is they do graze really close to the ground, a lot more than cattle. I had this right here, and where I'm at, we get the soil to blowing really fast and easy. And these sheep, I had to move them off of this because in about 2 days they had this looking like it's ready to blow. And this is what it looked like the day before. It was just my radishes and stuff. They love those radishes. So anyway, there's my contact information. Have any questions or comments? I know there's people in here that probably know more about sheep than I do, so I'd love to hear comments or questions.
You said you were selling through the GAP program, and you used $3.50 a pound as a model for just a marketing deal.
Yes.
What are you selling them for on average? Because you were talking about $230 a head at 60 pounds. So how much per head are you getting going through the GAP?
Okay, so I don't know if all y'all heard the question, but he asked, how much do I get for those GAP animals? So I took 2 loads about 2 weeks ago, and they've just increased the price in this new year. And I get paid $6.20 a pound on the hanging weight. And my dress out is usually 50%. So that, the last load that came out to $350 a head.
Yeah, so you're maintaining that $3.50 a pound, selling a 120-pound animal instead of a 60-pound animal.
Yes. Yes, that's the hanging weight. So, and like I said, that's going to Whole Foods market. But it's, I'm not selling to Whole Foods, I'm selling them to the slaughterhouse, but. Okay.
Are you grain feeding to get the rest of that gain?
No, I am not. The gap has to be grass fed. So the way I do it, so I have a total separate pasture that I put, I wean my ram lambs and I put them on this pasture. Like right now, they're just on wheat. And anyway, and what I do, the way I do it is I go out once a month and I gather the lambs and I put them in the pen, and I have just a small, one of those little paw scales. And what I do is we run them all through and weigh them all individually. And I set that scale on, I think I do it on 110 pounds. So yeah, we do 110 pounds. But they walk through that scale and they trip it. That means they're 110 or heavier. I don't care if they're heavier. I don't care if they're 130. But I just want to make sure they're a minimum of 110. And so once a month we do that and we sort. And once they get 110, I haul them to the slaughterhouse. If they don't trip it, I just take them back to the pasture and another month, give them another month to figure out. So.
You're good, Kelly. Any questions?
Okay. Okay.
You say you shoot for 120% land crop. I assume that's per land and not per year.
Yes, that's per land. 120. I shoot for 120% land crop, but then I shoot for 3 of those in 2 years. So, what would that be? That would be in 2 years. One mama would should have 6. That's 6, right? So, for 5. Again.
You say that you have 6 more lambs than you have to.
Yes.
Do you do any,
I'm sorry.
protocol on the board?
Okay, he asked.
But this is right at birth. though.
Right. He asked if I do anything right at birth to the lambs, and the answer is no, I do nothing. So, other than try to keep them alive. Now, sometimes the mama wants to leave her baby, or she may have 3, like I said, and one will. We'll either bottle feed those babies if we can catch them in time, or you know, if I do have a pen close, I will sometimes lock her up in a pen. So another thing that you can do, I didn't really mention this, is you can what's called graft those lambs. If I have a mama that had a baby that died, and then I had another one that had a baby that's wandering around, what we do is we lock them up in a pen and I put her on a halter. The ewe, yeah, I put the ewe on the halter and I take that afterbirth of her baby and I smear it all over that lamb that I'm trying to get her to claim, and I lock them up in that pen where she can't butt him off for about 2 days, and he will finally suck and she will finally get to where she'll claim him. She can raise him that way.
Her milk on him.
Yes, oh yeah, smother them with all of that. And I've also heard you can put Carmex in their nose to kind of mess with their smell, but anyway, so. I'm sorry? Transport them? Oh, okay. Yeah, so he asked how do I move them around? I just use a cattle trailer. Yeah, but sheep are so different than cattle. If you're used to working cattle, they don't want to go. And I probably should have mentioned this earlier in my talk, but what the best thing for sheep for handling facilities is a long, narrow alley where they can't turn around, and it's kind of dark. It's like a solid alley where they can't see out, and they'll go to that light at the end. but it's hard to get them to go. But once one goes in, they're all gonna go, because it's kind of weird design. It's not like cattle. It's hard to sort them. Like when I wean my lambs, I usually end up having to catch them by hand in a small area and pull them out, because I cannot get them to naturally separate like that. Good? Thank y'all.